The next topic, we'll talk a little bit on the pathogenesis and prevention of viral disease. And we probably will spend a little bit more time on prevention. And this material I prepared by myself. I found some file online, which is not in our textbook. We'll talk about that. First, the pathogenesis. Okay. First, we want to talk about the modes of transmission of viruses. Well, again, it's similar to bacterial infection. There are two major transmission patterns. One is the horizontal transmission. The other one is vertical transmission. Okay, we'll talk vertical transmission is simpler. Vertical transmission is a direct transfer of a virus from a mother to her babies, offsprings, through different ways, such as direct transfer across the placenta. During the procedure of childbirth, the baby is exposed to the virus, or sometimes through the breastfeeding. The virus can transfer in the milk, the breastfeeding. And can anyone give example of placenta transmission? Have you heard of a virus called Zika virus? Yeah, you know that. The Zika virus is transmitted by mosquito, and if a pregnant mom is infected by Zika virus, it can infect the fetus, the baby, and it influences the central nervous system. So usually the victim baby would have a little brain, little head, okay? And childbirth, like HBV is an example. If the mom is positive for HBV antigen, you would give the newborn baby some neutralizing antibody immediately after born. So that neutralizing antibody can provide an immediate protection for short term. And meanwhile, you give the baby the HBV vaccine to activate the baby's immune system. And also breastfeeding. I think any virus can pass through the breastfeeding. HIV? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So this is a vertical transmission from mother to her offspring. Well, the second type of transmission is horizontal transmission. So that's a transmission of an infectious agent, the virus, between members of the same species that are not in a parent-child relationship. Same species first, not in a parent-child relationship, through like these different ways, like touches, blood or other body fluids, the air, the droplets, the aerosol, or contaminate the food, water, or insects, such as flu. If someone is suffering from flu infection, and the person might release the flu influenza virus in droplets, the aerosol, which can be inhaled by another person. So that causes the spreading of influenza virus. I have a question. If a mom is infected by flu, then she transfers the virus to her baby. Is that a vertical transmission or horizontal transmission? Like in some family, the parent got infected first, then the child got infected later. It's horizontal, right. That's horizontal. So we should understand this definition accurately. Okay. we'll talk a little bit about the viral pathogenesis. And okay, once a virus enters the host body, like human, any specific virus should enter the body in a certain way, in a specific way. Like the influenza virus, they always enter the body to set up infections through respiration. If influenza virus contaminates our food or water, it's not a big problem because they don't set up infection in the digestive tract. So virus enter the host through some specific way to set up infection. And for the virus to set up infection, first they have to interact with the susceptible cells. This is required. Without a susceptible cell, without the receptor, they cannot get into the cell and replicate. This is very important. And then in the cell, the viruses replicate and produces cell injury, either directly or indirectly. So this is a simple process of virus infection. And replication sometimes is the same site of entry. Okay, once they get into the entry site, they set up infection directly, but not always. Sometimes the virus would replicate in some tissue, some organ far away in our body. That depends on the location of the susceptible cells. Okay. Most viruses enter our body through either the skin, respiratory tract, the gastrointestinal tract, the urogenital tract, or the conjunctiva. So all depends on the type of viruses. And some viruses are introduced directly into the bloodstream by needle. Example of this include like hepatitis B virus and HIV. Sometimes they can be induced directly through the needle, or by accident. It happened in China before that by blood transfusion with contaminated blood or blood product, or by insect vector such as a yellow fever and also Zika virus we mentioned just now. And these are introduced by the mosquito vector. Viruses usually replicate at the primary site of entry, but not always. Depends on the type of viruses, and also they need to find their target cell to set up infection. Okay. Then the virus can spread in the human body. Many viruses produce diseases at sites distant from their point of entry, such as HBV virus, hepatitis B virus. They get into the human body through either blood or body fluids, but they set up infection. It causes disease in the liver because the inflammation and damage in the liver. The most common route is via the bloodstream or the lymphatic vessel, and sometimes neurons can be a highway for the virus spread. The virus can travel in the neuron fiber. It's like a highway to a long distance. And there is a term we want to remember, the viremia. Yes, it's easy to understand. What's the meaning of emia? I mentioned this before. Blood, right? Something in the bloodstream, we call it emia. So viremia means virus in the bloodstream. Presence of virus in the blood is called viremia. And virus infections tend to exhibit organ and cellular specificities. Why? We mentioned this before. Why virus infection usually shows cellular or organ specificity? Anyone? We mentioned the last time. Think about this, the 4 steps of virus infection. The first step is attachment. So it requires the expression of specific receptor. And the receptor expression is cellular specific. And some cell would express that receptor while other cells don't. So that's why the virus infection exhibits organ and cell specificities. Okay. Once the viruses infect the whole cell, they can turn out in different results. So the effects of infection. Some can cause the cytocidal effect. Anyone know the meaning of cytocidal? Cytocidal. Right, exactly. So cyto means cell, cidal means to kill, right? So cytocidal effect is the production of new infectious virus kills the whole cell. So the whole cell, infected whole cell would be killed. And this happens especially for the non-enveloped virus, because non-enveloped virus, when they replicate, they accumulate to large numbers, then they lyse the whole cell. So this is this is a characteristic for the naked virus. Another result is the steady state infection. The virus or its genome resides in some or all the cells without killing most of them. And this happens a lot for the enveloped virus, as when the enveloped virus replicates, they leave the whole cell by budding. It's a mild way, it's a moderate way. So it does not kill the infected cell directly within a short time, but they release the new variants slowly. And the third type of result is transformation. Transformation, we learn transformation of bacteria. It's a similar meaning that once infected by a virus, the virus does not kill the cell, but instead they produce genetic, biochemical, physiological, or morphological changes that may result in the acquisition of malignant properties. So they are not killing the whole cell. And viral infection would enable the host cell to replicate all the time to form large numbers. This is called transformation. Well, for one way, this is good for the virus because they can generate more and more host cells. But it's harmful for the host, for human, because they can cause malignant cancer, such as HPV infection. They can cause the human cell transformation and cause a lot different type of cancers, including the cervical cancer. And because it's caused by virus infection, and probably we should have some vaccine. And usually for those high-risk viruses, we have some vaccine available, such as for the high-risk types of HPV, you can have the vaccine to prevent tumor or cancer. HPV vaccine is available here in China for both female and male right now. And it was open for male just a couple months ago. So any one of you who wants to receive the HPV vaccine, you can go to the hospital to get it. And because you guys are young, and it will benefit more if you receive the vaccine right now. And yeah, it can prevent more than 97% of the cancer. Okay, so this is the CPE effect, the cytopathic effect. And from this picture, you can see that it's the human corneal epithelial cell cultured in the lab. And in panel A here, this is a healthy cell which attach to the bottom and form a monolayer. And they show the typical structure, typical morphology. But once the cell is infected by HSV1, the herpes simplex virus 1, and you can see that the morphology of the virus would change. And in panel B, this is 8-hour post-infection. In panel C, 12 hours. In panel D, that's 24 hours after infection. You can see that after infection, gradually, the cell's morphology would change. They would detach from the bottom, and some cell would die. The cytopathic effect. Okay. On the host level, the types of the infection can turn out in different ways. Some infection would show inapparent infection, like subclinical infection. Subclinical means that even though in a person's body you can detect the presence of virus, and you can also detect the presence of a antibody specific to the virus, but the person does not show any observable symptoms. And this is usual actually, like the common cold infection. Some people would suffer from high fever and cough, and that's symptoms. But some people, they don't show any symptoms. But you cannot say that they are not infected. Probably it's possible they have already been infected, but they don't show any symptoms. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, if you remember, that some people would show obvious symptoms like headache, muscle pain, and high fever. But some, they never showed any symptoms. But if you detect the presence of antibody in their body, probably it's positive. It means that they have been infected, but they didn't show any symptoms. Then apparent infection, so that's infection with symptoms. Acute infection, that's the onset or progress of the disease is sudden and fast. And it can also form persistent infections such as chronic infection, latent infection, slow virus infection. Let me show you some example here. The first one is chronic infection. It means that the virus can be continuously detected in the host, but with mild or no evident clinical symptoms. Okay, here is an example of chronic infection. The hepatitis B virus infection. Time zero here says exposure. Not long after exposure, there is a disease episode. The patient might suffer from inflammation in the liver, but this keeps only for a short period. And after that, the patient would enter a long-term period that it didn't show any symptoms. But it doesn't mean that this patient has been recovered. Even though they don't show any disease, the virus is still replicating in their liver and also releasing the virus and shedding the virus. So this is a type of chronic infection. Okay, another type of infection is called latent infection. And we know the meaning of latent, that the virus persists in a hidden form most of the time. And if induced, or when the person is suffering from stress or the immune system is not working well, there might be an intermittent flare-ups of clinical disease. And the infectious virus can be recovered during the flare-up. Sometimes the latent virus can persist in the patient's body for lifelong. One famous example is the varicella zoster infection. Last time I asked you the question, anyone had varicella when you were a kid? A lot, right? As I remember. The chicken pox. Anyone? Yeah, I guess a lot. So the good news is that you will never get chicken pox anymore. But the bad news is that after you get infected by the virus, the varicella virus, the virus would become latent in your neuron. So it will hide in the neuron for lifelong. And for a long time, you would be safe. There is no symptoms, no disease at all. But later, when you're getting old, especially when you are over 50 years old, the latent virus might cause some endogenous infection. It travels along the neuron fiber, then infect the skin cell again. So this time, it causes a different disease called zoster. Anyone know the meaning of zoster? Zoster? It's a belt. It's like in ancient Greek or Rome, they have a belt they call zoster. So a zoster is like a belt along your waist. So you can see it's on the skin, it's along the waist, and the running of the zoster is along the neuron fiber. Because when there is a neuron, there is the zoster. So this is the latent infection of varicella zoster virus. Okay, it's not just the pox on the skin. When a person suffer from zoster, they would feel a lot of pain. It's a very specific pain from inside, because the infection is from the neuron fiber. Right now, the good news is that we do have vaccines available. In China, there are two types of vaccines available. One is made by a Chinese company. The other one was imported, which can prevent or at least reduce the pain of zoster. So you don't have to get the vaccine right now. But for your parent or your grandparent, if they receive the vaccine, that will be better, because it can prevent the happening of zoster, or that it will reduce the pain of zoster. Okay, it's one type of latent infection. And latent infection can also happen in other viruses, such as the HSV type 2, the herpes virus, the simplex virus type 2. Even though, yeah, that virus does not cause a lot of damage, but it can flare up a lot of times. And slow virus infection. So this is after exposure. The virus would replicate in the host slowly, and it has a prolonged incubation period. This is the incubation period. And during the incubation period, there is no symptoms at all. It can last for months or years, okay, during which the virus continuously replicates and accumulates in the host. And finally, it will enter the disease episode. So it takes a long incubation period to develop the symptoms, slow virus infection. Okay. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about the control measures for viruses. Well, this is not in our textbook. Okay. Control measures for viruses. What type of method we can use to control or prevent viral infection? Here are some measures we can think about, and yeah, some of them are just for animal virus, such as slaughter. We're not slaughtering people, okay? And okay, the first type of method is called quarantine. Quarantine. Do you know the original meaning of quarantine? No. QUAR. What's the meaning of QUAR? In America, they have a coin. It's 25 cents. And 25 cents coin, it's a quarter, right? QUATR. So that's QUAR related to 4, right? So quarantine, the original meaning probably is not an English word. It means 40 days. 40 days. It happened hundreds of years. Hundreds of years ago. It happened in the cities along the Mediterranean Sea, and you know, those cities, those countries, they did a lot of business, trading between each other, and but during that time there was Black Death outbreak. Black Death, we know that it's due to bacterial infection, and the bacteria can be carried by mouth and ticks. And when they do a lot of trade, a lot of business, the ships, the boat travel between different countries, okay, both from one country to another country. Then to prevent the outbreak of the Black Death, they use a quarantine method that while a boat carrying like wheat to my country, okay, I'm not allowing the boat to enter my port directly. I'll direct the boat to some isolated island to let the boat and all the people to stay on the island for 40 days. If after 40 days, the people that on the boat are safe, then they are allowed to enter my port. So this is quarantine. To give them some time to allow to make sure that the suspicious person is safe. So that's the original meaning of quarantine, 40 days. And nowadays, we use this word means that we separate the infected person or animals with signs suspicious of an viral infection. Okay, so that make sure they won't release the virus to other people with quarantine. During the COVID-19, and we use the hospitals a lot, and if a person travel from one city to another city, they have to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. So that's quarantine. The second measure is the import controls. Previously, before the globalization, a lot of diseases are only like endemic or local disease. But due to the global transport, the viruses can be transported between different countries. So this time we want to use the method of import control to make sure that the products transported into the country is clean from certain pathogens, such as the pork, and the meat. It's possible that it carried the African, the African swine fever virus, which is a DNA virus. If we import pork from other countries, we want to make sure that it's clean. It's not containing the virus. And we did that in China for many years, but in recent years, it failed. And finally, the virus traveled a long distance from Africa, then Europe, then Russia, then finally China. We also have it right now. And even some plant products, such as oranges, like bananas, you want to make sure that they don't carry certain viruses or certain insects. Okay, the third method is notification. Notification is about information collection and usage. If in your hospital, in your clinic, you find some specific infection, some specific viral infection, there should be a system in your country that you are able to report the case. Okay, you report the case, and that system is able to collect the information from all the hospitals within the same country, then notify the information to WHO, even the World Health Organization, WHO, so that all countries all over the world can work together to prevent the spreading of certain virus. So ideally, we should have such reporting and notification system, but sometimes it cannot work properly. Some countries might hide some information without letting others know. That causes the trouble. Okay, number 4 is slaughter. Okay, not human, okay? It's for the animal viral infection. If in the farm, the animals are infected by some certain virus, the low-cost way is to kill all the animals at the same time, such as the African swine fever. It happened several years ago in China that once it infects some animal in a farm, it will infect all the animals at the same location. So the government would slaughter the herd, and then the next step is decontamination. So you want to decontaminate this area completely to bury the dead animal and treat it with chemical, and also decontaminate the environment to make sure that all the viruses will be eradicated. The last one is isolation. Isolation is to avoid multiple close contact such as in crowded housing. Like a secure farm will also exclude other animals and visitors that might transfer the virus. For example, if you know that some virus get into a small village and some people in the village got infected, and you can actually isolate the village from the surrounding world. It's useful. Make sure that you don't visit the village, and anyone visiting the village should not leave, at least for some time. But this is for small range, small scale. It's okay. But we learned the lesson that if you want to isolate some big city, a huge city with a population over 10 millions, it will be a disaster if you isolate the city from the rest of the world. Because you have so big population in the same city, it's a problem for them to survive by themselves. They need supply every day. They need service every day. You cannot isolate them from the rest of the world. It will be a disaster. And a lot of people would die, not due to infection, but due to isolation. So we should think about that when we make any public health policies. Okay, the next is treatment. Sometimes virus infection, the treatment is the last thing you want to think about. Because usually, especially for new outbreaks of some viral pathogen, you actually don't have the medicine available. So treatment is the last thing you want to think about. And what you want to think about first is vaccination to prevent the virus infection. We can design the vaccine and immunize the population ahead before infection, and that will be low cost and more effective, okay, and it will be the best way. And it's good that nowadays we have a lot of vaccines available which can prevent a lot of infectious disease. And in the modern world, everyone can avoid most of the infectious disease right now, especially those ones which can cause lethal results and dangerous infections. Insect control. I would give you some example of the insect control that's also related to Zika virus infection. We know Zika virus is transmitted through mosquito. So the way we can prevent Zika virus transmission is that we kill the mosquito. So in any water, such as in the river, in the lake, you put in the chemical to kill mosquito in it. And also at home, you want to check your garden. Make sure that there is no residue water in your garden, because any little bit of water could support the mosquito to reproduce. So we inhibit the reproduction of mosquito, kill the mosquito, and we can prevent Zika virus infection. Yeah, even though we have so many measures to take, we can control virus infection, but still we have a lot of trouble. We have a lot of obstacles to control the viruses due to different reasons. These different reasons. The first one is the poor infrastructure. Well, in the real world, it's true. And especially in a lot of countries, the developing countries, they do have nothing to prevent the virus infection, even the vaccine. And each vaccine might cost a couple of dollars. They cannot afford it. So it's too expensive for them. So that is why we have WHO. That WHO was initiated by developed countries the major goal of WHO is to provide free vaccine to those developing countries so that we can prevent infectious disease. You know, infectious disease is not for the problem of any certain country, it's for the whole population of humans. So you don't want to leave some hotspot. You want to completely get rid of it. And also global transport, we mentioned that. And nowadays, anyone can travel to any place within a day if you want. And when you travel, the pathogen would also travel with you. So we want to focus on the global transport of either goods or human so that we can prevent the transfer of the pathogen. The third one is mutation, especially for viruses. When viruses replicate, they cannot proofread their genome. If there is some mistake, some mutation, then there is some mutation. So viruses are changing all the time. So quick mutation give us a lot of pressure to make vaccines available. Yeah, that's a vaccine design. We can design some vaccine to prevent some virus infection, but not all. And one example I mentioned before, that's the HIV. We have discovered HIV for over 40 years, but till now we don't have any HIV vaccine available to prevent infection. Okay. The reservoir host and insect host, that's the reservoir. You want to pay attention to it, make sure that they won't release the pathogen to the population. And the last 2 points, I might talk about it a little bit longer. That's the rumors about vaccines. I guess you have heard of a lot of them, right? It's not good to receive the vaccine. Well, it might cause harmful. It might be harmful to your body. Such as in the Western world, there were rumors that autism from the combined vaccine MMR, okay, mumps, measles, and rubella, that vaccine can cause autism. It's definitely a rumor, but this rumor has been there for a long time, over 30 years. And the infertility from polio vaccines, this rumor is especially popular in Mid East area. Nowadays, it's especially in Afghanistan and Pakistan. People there believe in Islam, and those people, especially some people living in the villages, they believe that polio vaccine is designed by Western country to kill the people there, to make the people infertility, so that they can get rid of those people. But it's a rumor. And WHO tried to help those people. They make the vaccine in some Islamic country, such as they make the vaccine in Indonesia, then transport the vaccine to those countries. Okay, yeah, a lot of rumors. Yeah, like in in Japan. In Japan, there was some rumor about HPV vaccine. They said that HPV vaccine can also cause infertility. And except that, there are also other problems with the vaccine itself. That in some area, they found a counterfeit vaccine, which is not a real vaccine. That happened in Hong Kong several years ago. they discovered a bunch of vaccine, HPV vaccine, but actually it's just saline, not just water, so it's not useful. The homeopathic vaccine, which is believed by some people, but it does not work. Okay, and also the vaccine with poor quality. Okay, that's all for today.